Hello, 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 and welcome back to, well, actually, welcome to the first UFC video on this channel. I'm pretty excited to be honest with you. I started watching UFC about 8, 9 months ago. I think the first fight I ever saw was like Hamzat versus Gilbert Burns on YouTube. That's really how I got into UFC. The free fights they had on their YouTube channel. It's like, okay, that's cool. I always like knew about UFC, you know what I mean? But it's like becoming a fan, starting to watch the fights. I'm pretty into it now. I wouldn't call myself a hardcore. I still am a casual in certain aspects. So for this video, I'm literally just gonna be talking about the fights coming up or maybe about to be made, stuff like that I am most looking forward to as a casual fan, if you want to put it like that. Just my opinions on the fight, why I think they're so exciting, so important, stuff like that. So yeah, let's get right into it. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and thank you for watching. Starting off, I'm gonna go in chronological order actually, and like play like in time that these fights are going to take place. So the first one I want to talk about is on August 3rd, again between Davison Figueiredo and Chito Vera. It's a bantamweight division fight. This is the feature fight. I don't think it's the co-main. It should be the co-main to the Saudi Arabia fight night with Sanhagen and Umar Nurmagomedov. So this is a really important fight for the bantamweight division for a couple of reasons. Really because they don't have right now at least, after the Sean versus Marab fight, they really don't have another guy at the top for Sean to fight. If Sandhagen wins, you would assume obviously he's going to be the guy. But let's say for hypothetically, let's say if Sandhagen loses to Umar, would you rather have Umar fight after really only one ranked win in Sandhagen, or would you have the winner of these two? Now, I'll admit, I think Cheeto being ranked at number 4, I think he is pretty overrated. Like I didn't think he deserved the title shot in the first place. I think it's pretty clear the only reason he beat O'Malley back in the day is because of his injury he suffered. Um, so yeah, I think Cheeto does not deserve that number 4 spot. But with that being said, I think this is a great fight. I think Figueiredo's history, first of all, in the flyweight division, he is one of the best flyweights in UFC history. I mean, he had a stretch of 6 straight title fights at flyweight. He went 3-2 and had one draw, I think, against Brandon Moreno. So we had 4 fights against Brandon Moreno. But in the bantamweight division, since he's moved up, he's 2-0, has wins over Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt. Neither of those are necessarily great wins, but I think both those guys I think Garbrandt was ranked. So this is his biggest fight so far at bantamweight. And I would make the argument if he wins this fight, he absolutely should be in the title picture. I mean, you have a former flyweight champion, a great champion at that, multiple wins, and a 3 fight win streak. If he wins this fight, absolutely, I think Figueiredo would be in the title picture if he wins. And Cheeto, he really needs a win here. I mean, this is if he loses this, then that's 3 out of his last 4, and I would say he probably is on a downward spiral in his career. So it's a must win for Cheeto. If Figueiredo wins, he's in the title picture. So we have major stakes here in this fight. And I like the fight overall. I think stylistically it could be a very fun matchup. I don't necessarily think either of these guys. I think Figueiredo is known for or exciting, entertaining fights. I think Cheeto, his last fight, even I mean, he knocked out Cruz, but that fight, I mean, it was a good fight actually. I think both these guys are pretty entertaining, but I think this fight will be decided in the grappling exchanges because honestly, Cheeto is one of those guys who is pretty much a slow starter. Like he's one of those guys where he loses the first round simply due to inactivity most of the time. So I'm almost willing to bet that he will lose the first round to Figueiredo. And I think it's only a 3 rounder. I mean, I would like for it to be a 5 rounder, but I think the main event is going to be a 5 rounder. So I think this is only a 3 rounder. And if I'm just giving Figueiredo the first round off Cheeto's history of inactivity, I feel pretty confident in Figueiredo winning this fight. I think Cheeto is the more dangerous striker. I think Figueiredo, even though he finished Garbrandt pretty early, he was losing on the feet. Like I feel pretty confident in remembering that he was not outstriking Cody Garbrandt in their last fight. So I think Figueiredo, his path to victory. Both these guys are very hard to finish, by the way. I think Figueiredo's only been finished like twice in the last like 5, 6 years. I think Cheeto, he definitely has not been finished, at least in the last several years. So both these guys, I don't know if this is going to be a finish. I think I have Figueiredo by decision, winning the first round and then winning the grappling exchanges in the next 2 rounds. So I think it'll be a pretty good fight, high level competition, of course, but I do have Figueiredo winning a close decision. I think I'll give him the first and the second round. Cheeto might win the third. Moving on. Same card, same card. I got Corey Sandhagen and Umar Nurmagomedov. I love this fight for several reasons. First of all, I'm Muslim, so I'm a big fan of the whole Nurmagomedov family, the Dagestan. I like Umar a lot as a prospect. He's undefeated, of course, and I love the fact that Sandhagen is in a position where he's in a number one contenders fight. Now, I don't really believe that Umar should be a number one contender if he wins this fight, but obviously Sandhagen. If Sandhagen gets this done, there is no, you cannot deny him the next title shot at Sean O'Malley. And a lot of people want to see that happen because we're thinking like two crafty, exciting strikers on the feet. Now, I think Sandhagen is a little overrated against top competition. Like in my head, when I think of the top three guys that Sandhagen has fought, I think Aljamain Sterling, TJ Dillashaw, and Peter Yan. He lost by to submission against Aljamain Sterling. So lost that fight convincingly. Lost convincingly to Peter Yan. That was not a very close fight. Yan outclassed him, and he lost a very close decision to TJ Dillashaw. That was an old TJ. You know, if you're just that guy, in my opinion, you finished TJ Dillashaw. You beat him convincingly. He lost that fight to TJ, even though it was a very close fight. His last three fights, I don't really feel like it's been against the top of the division. But Umar himself is not at the top of the division. So I think Sandhagen should be the heavy favorite in this fight. But in my opinion, when you look at, I think when you got a guy who is a good striker, no matter how good of a striker is, I feel like he's going to lose that. I think he's going to lose the fight to a dominant grappler the majority of the time. I do think Umar, everybody in that camp, but especially Umar, is a dominant grappler. I think he is more dangerous on the feet than the average, what you would maybe would expect for a Dagestan fighter. He is dangerous on the feet, but I don't think like his path to victory here is by grappling with Sandhagen, a lot of control time, a lot of ground and pound, possibly working towards a submission. And I don't really believe that Sandhagen can stop that. I'd love to see him try. I'm not saying he's, a pushover that he can't, put together some good takedown defense. But if I had to bet, I do think Umar is going to control this fight with the takedowns. I don't think, honestly, I don't really think Sandhagen has the power. I know Umar got dropped in his last fight against a nobody in terms of he was like, it was his first fight in the UFC that against the guy that Umar got dropped by. So I think Sandhagen, I don't see a world. I think the way both these guys win the fight is Umar by dominant decision, grappling, dominance, or submission, or Sandhagen by outclassing him on the feet, good takedown defense, and maybe a knockout. But I just don't see that. Like if this is a 5 round fight, I'm pretty much like I'm leaning like 65% this goes to decision. I think Umar wins a decision pretty clearly here. So I do have Umar. I'll say by submission. I'll say if this is a 5 round fight, I'm not sure about that. I would have to assume it is. If this is a 5 round fight, I have Umar by late round submission. But Sandhagen, I just don't know. I know a lot of people hype up Sandhagen, and I think he does very well against guys that he's better than. But I have yet to see a fight where he's beat somebody that is at least at the top of the division. I have yet to see that. This won't really change my opinion of that, but I don't. This is another question: can he defend against a dominant grappler? We will see a lot of questions to be answered by this fight, and I'm excited for it. Next up, we got UFC 305 main event. I had to start with some non-title fights to appear like less than a casual. But listen, I mean, title fights obviously you're going to be excited for title fights, but this is more than the average title fight, right? There is some bad blood supposedly in this fight, and this is the thing. Adesanya really has not been well. Let me say this: he has a history of not being that entertaining. Like the Strickland fight, it was entertaining watching him get beat up, but he was not that entertaining against Strickland. Obviously, against Yoel Romero, he was terribly boring and lazy or whatever. The Cannonier fight, people say was boring. The Vettori fight, people say I don't. I think people say it was just a bad performance from Izzy. So he has a history. Obviously, both of the Pereira fights were amazing, all-time classics, right? But the narrative coming in is that Izzy as a challenger is way more dangerous. They say he's way more aggressive. He puts on way more pressure than when he is the defending champion. I think that's true. I think that's probably true. And I think DDP, listen, I thought Strickland beat him in that title fight. I think Strickland clearly took the first, the fifth, and I believe the second. I think the third was debatable as well. I think the only round DDP won clearly was the fourth. So I don't even think he won his last fight against Strickland. But with that being said, he is dangerous as a champion. I think his grappling clearly gives him an edge here, but Izzy has shown to have very good takedown defense in the past against guys like Whitaker. But I don't know. I think this is the thing. I think DDP on the feet he puts himself in a lot of vulnerable positions. He's kind of an unorthodox striker. Um, but I think it leaves him exposed a lot of times. When you got a guy like Izzy who is so precise and he has so much power and he can put you away pretty easily, leaving yourself it's a 5 round fight. Unless DDP somehow, because listen, as I know, he could catch Izzy on some weird, unexpected, just he could catch Izzy, absolutely. But unless he catches Izzy in the first round or two, I think he's very liable to get put away by Izzy. And even if he doesn't get put away, I don't see him finishing Izzy on the ground. So I think it's much I see more ways to win for Adesanya than I do for DDP. I love the fight. I love the matchup. I'm gonna watch it, of course, but if I had to predict a winner, I would say either Adesanya by knockout or Adesanya by decision. And pretty much like I think Adesanya is going to beat DDP on the feet handedly. Like I think there's a way to win for DDP, and it's completely physically dominating Izzy on the ground, out muscling him, outworking him in the clinch. But if it's an open field battle, if you want to put it that way, on the feet, I think Izzy wins that pretty decisively. So I do have Adesanya winning this fight. Next up, we have Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. This is arguably my fight that I am most excited for in the entire UFC right now. Um, I have it as champion versus champion, obviously. Holloway, the BMF champion, Topuria, the featherweight champion. I mean, two of the best boxers in the UFC, two of the biggest names in the featherweight division. It's everything you could ask for. I'm so glad the UFC decided to make this fight so quickly after 300 because right now Holloway arguably has the most amount of hype in the entire company. He had the biggest moment I have seen in my time of being a UFC fan with his knockout of Justin Gaethje in that fight. So I love the fact that the UFC is capitalizing off that and putting him against Topuria in a deserved fight. I mean, before the Justin Gaethje fight, he won 2 fights in a row at featherweight in which he knocked out Korean Zombie and he beat Arnold Allen. So I love the fight. I love the stylistic matchup. And in my opinion, the the fight is in Ilya's hands because obviously we know that Max has power. We know Max can put guys away. But this fight is in Ilya's hands. And what I mean by that is he is a great grappler by all accounts. And I've seen it in the fights like for example, Josh Emmett. He finished guys like uh Bryce Mitchell, I believe, but he knocked them out. So I think if Ilya decides to use his grappling, I think he will win this fight. I think if he incorporates a good amount of takedowns, ground and pound, I don't think Max has an answer for that. But if this is a stand-up fight, Max obviously his body of work, the most significant strikes in UFC history by a mile, his body of work shows us that he can outstrike you, unless you're Volkanovski, that he can outstrike you over a long period of time. But the question with that is, Ilya is so powerful and he sets so many traps where even though Max may be the more, I mean, Volk technically was outstriking Ilya until obviously he put his lights out. So Max could be winning. Like, let's say Max wins the first 3 rounds on the feet, but all of a sudden in round 4, one slip up, you're out cold. So it's so dangerous in that way. And don't get me wrong, Max could also put out Ilya, but I think the likelihood of Max knocking out Ilya is so much less likely than Ilya knocking out Max, if that makes sense. So it's going to come down to I think there are more ways for Ilya to win than Max. Obviously, Max has all the hype, he's a legend, all of that. But I do think Ilya simply is the better, more complete fighter than Max. So I'm going to pick Ilya. Is it by knockout or by decision? I don't know, man. He can really win. He could win by knockout. He could submit Max on the ground. He could take it out, edge a close decision. There's more ways to win. The only way I really see Max beating Ilya is by decision. I don't think he's going to knock him out, and obviously he's not going to do anything on the ground. So I don't know. I gotta go Ilya. I'm not gonna give you a way that he's gonna win, but I do think Ilya is gonna win this massive, massive fight, and I'm gonna watch every second of it. Moving on. Same card, the Sphere, amazing card. I mean, just legendary card. We have O'Malley versus Merab. I love this fight because this is going to be Sean's biggest test, arguably a bigger test than Aljamain Sterling was, to be honest with you. This could be Sean's biggest test of his championship career. I think Merab is absolutely the most deserving for a title shot. He's been the most deserving even before his fight with Henry Cejudo. But the thing that really the reason I'm so excited for this fight is this has the possibility to launch Sean O'Malley into the next level. And what I mean by that, he's already a champion. He's already a popular UFC champion. But if he was to knock out Merab Dvalishvili, that could launch him into like global star. Like that could launch him into the biggest UFC champion in terms of popular. You know what I mean? Like he could absolutely after this fight uh make the case to move up to featherweight for a double champ status. He could absolutely make the case to go pursue a multi-million dollar boxing fight. Like that could absolutely I could understand that happening if he was to put out Merab. Um with that being said, the pitfalls for O'Malley, if you will, for this fight. But here's the thing: there are dominant grapplers who put you in danger of being finished via submission or via ground and pound, right? I don't really think Marab's that guy. I mean, his last couple fights, Cejudo, Peter Yan, Aldo, all decision. I mean, and don't get me wrong, the Yan, I mean, those were all clear wins. I'm not going to discredit that. But this is the thing. He has to put away Sean. I don't think he's going to survive on the feet till the end of the unless he's just that much of a better unless he's just that much stronger than Sean, unless they can just hold him down and wear him out to where he's not even a threat on the feet, like the last round, for example. I just don't see that happen. He has to put away Sean, and he's not shown an ability to do that in his last several fights. Now I'll admit, Jan, Cejudo, Aldo, probably all better grapplers than Sean. So maybe you could say it would be easier to finish Sean on the ground than those guys. I could believe that, but and don't get me wrong, he's no slouch on the feet. He's not a bum with the striking, but compared to O'Malley, you probably are just not even in the same stratosphere, right? So every second he stays on his feet, he is liable to get knocked out. It's just, so it's I think it's too dangerous for him to win a fight by decision. So he has to put him out. And I think he has to honestly, I think he has to put him out in the first three rounds. I don't see a world where he makes it to the fourth, fifth round. So I don't see that happen. I don't see a world where he finishes Sean in the first round or two. And if that's the case, Sean's gonna catch him. When he's gonna catch him, I'm not sure, but he's too crafty. He's too dangerous. There's too many ways he can knock you out. I think he's gonna put Merab to sleep. Honestly, I think he's gonna put Merab to sleep, and he's gonna launch himself, his brand, his everything into the stratosphere. And yeah, that's gonna be that. Great fight though. Great fight. I am going to watch it intently. Next up, UFC Fight Night Paris on September 28th. We have Renato Moicano versus Benoit Saint Denis. I believe this is the main event. Good main event, solid main event. Benoit Saint Denis, obviously, fan favorite, big name in France, even though his last fight against Poirier, it was a great fight. His fight versus Poirier, great fight. He showed that he outclassed Poirier with the grappling and everything, but as a striker, he was just too sloppy. But he doesn't really have to worry about that with Moicano. Now, listen, I know Moicano put out Jalen Turner versus ground and pound, but Moicano is a jiu-jitsu. He is a grappler. He's a wrestler. I think Benoit, honestly, he's the more powerful striker. He might even pose more of a risk. uh, Moicano might be the one who initiates the grappling sequences. I think these guys are pretty evenly matched, even though I think Moicano is a much better or much more accomplished fighter. I think their actual rate, I think Moicano should be ranked like 8 or 9. Saint Denis should be ranked like 14, 15. But I do think they are pretty evenly matched. And I could see this fight going either way. Moicano, the reason I put this on here, I just think Moicano is funny as hell. Like he has so many funny clips and everything. I like his podcast and shit. So but I also think it's just a good fight. I mean, the winner of this is probably going to be top like 7 or 8. Well, if it's Moicano, he'll be top like 7 or 8. If it's Saint Denis, he might get into the top 10. But I think it's a big fight for both these guys. Moicano's on a win streak. Saint Denis was on one before his fight versus Poirier. So who do I think is going to win? Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Moicano, he did get dropped by Jalen Turner, almost got put away. Turner thought it was a walk off, but he came back, won that fight. Who is the better grappler? I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure. I think Saint Denis might be the stronger, more powerful guy, but I think Moicano's technique might be better. I think he's more crafty. So I'm not sure. I think I'm gonna have Moicano by submission in this fight. I think it could be a very good fight. Might be even a war, possibly. Maybe it's a later round submission, but I do think Moicano gets it done. He's more experienced, more crafty. Um, but I could also see a world where Saint Denis knocks out Moicano on the feet. I think that is entirely possible. But if I had to pick a winner, I think I'm gonna go Moicano via submission. I like that fight a lot, though. Very good fight night main event. Next up, we got Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan. No date announced for this yet. Arman got that weird ass ban from the fucking commission, whatever, but I don't even think that's going to play a part in this. I think this fight will happen sometime in October or November, maybe MSG. It is, listen, Islam has solidified himself as the number one pound for pound fighter. He solidified himself as the best in the sport right now. His last several wins have just been ridiculous. I mean, he is at the top, the pinnacle of the sport right now. And he's already beat Tsarukyan in the past. I'll admit both those guys were a lot younger. I think Tsarukyan was like 23 or 24 at the time. So they both these guys have evolved. Both these guys are different fighters. But I honestly, I think Tsarukyan, the argument could be made that Tsarukyan stylistically is the toughest guy Islam will have ever fought at lightweight. Volkanovski obviously more accomplished, tougher fight off, but I mean in terms of lightweight guys, Tsarukyan might be Islam's toughest test, I should say. Because both these guys, they're good strikers, but they're not necessarily in the way that you might expect. Like, did you see the fucking axe kick Tsarukyan had on Oliveira? He outstruck Oliveira significantly. I think it was like 49-19. He showed that he was the number one contender with that fight versus Oliveira. He proved that. Um, but this is the thing. He's not going to outstrike Islam. He's not going to knock out Islam. I don't even think he's going to submit Islam. The only way I see Arman beating Islam is via decision, just narrowly winning each round with the scrambles and getting top position, possibly getting throwing a submission or two out there. But I just don't see it, man. I think Arman's a great fighter. I think he might even be the eventual lightweight champion once Islam fully moves to welterweight. But I just don't think he's gonna do it. And this is the thing, he's gotten out grappled twice in his last 7 or 8 fights. He got out grappled by Islam, and he got out grappled his 5 fights ago by Gamrot. So it's like, and people say that was a robbery. I don't. It was a close fight. He got out grappled by Gamrot. So if your strength is supposed to be your grappling, and you got out grappled multiple times in your UFC career, I can't have you beating the best grappler in the UFC right now. I think Islam, honestly, he could do whatever he wants. If he keeps down the feet, he could knock out Arman. He could easily outstrike him. I mean, he outstruck Volk handedly on the best version of Volk ever. Um, so I mean, Islam, he could win this fight however he wants. Honestly, he's already proven that he's the better grappler. I mean, he could choose that same path to victory if he wants. But I don't think Arman. Maybe he will. I think he probably should try to initiate some grappling exchanges, but I think it'd be very risky to do so. So I think if he is going to keep it on the feet, I think Islam wins there convincingly. So I think even though it's a great fight, I'm gonna watch it, of course. I think this is a pretty clear victory for Islam, in my opinion. If that's the case, that would mean he's won 5 straight title fights, and he absolutely is going to move up to welterweight after this. Honestly, regardless, I think of the result, I think he should move up to welterweight and fight Leon probably. So a lot of reasons to love this fight. I'm a big Islam fan, of course, and I think this could really solidify his case as the best lightweight ever without question. And finally, we have we have Peter Yan versus somebody. Now, obviously, Peter Yan, he tore his ACL, I believe, in the win versus Song Yadong. Great fight, by the way. He tore his ACL in that fight, so he's going to miss a lot. That was at UFC 299, and that was what was that March? I think that was March. So he's going to be out at least till the end of this year, maybe the start of next year. Hopefully, he can make a return. The reason I have him on here, he's one of my favorite fighters. He's one of the best boxers, most like crisp, technical, one of the best guys to watch in the UFC. So I love Peter Yan. He's one of my favorite fighters. And I think when he comes back, honestly, I think he deserves a number one contenders fight. And I think I think the guy he should fight is the winner of Figueiredo versus Chito Vera. So let's say, for example, I think Figueroa is going to win that fight, right? So I think Figueiredo, I think he wins that fight. He gets into the top five. Let's say he gets to number four, right? I think number three Peter Yan versus number four Figueiredo at the start of 2025. You could put it as the main event of a fight night. Could put it as the co-main of a pay-per-view. It's a massive fight. Both former champions for a number one contenders fight at bantamweight. Because right now, after the Marab fight, I think if Umar beats Corey, then there's going to be no number one guy. But even if Corey wins, he could fight Sean, and then after that, Peter Yan versus Figueiredo for the number one fight. And I think it sets out a very clear path at bantamweight for Sean O'Malley. Um, but yeah, man, really, at the end of the day, what I want to see the rematch. I want to see the rematch between Peter Yan and Sean O'Malley in the future. I think him versus Figueiredo would set up a clear number one contender. And I know you see three losses down there. Look, none of them were finishes. Two of them were extremely controversial in the Aljamain Sterling and the Sean O'Malley. You can make a case Yan won both those fights. The only fight he's clearly lost in recent history is Marab, and he did lose that fight clearly. So I think Peter Yan versus Figueiredo, hopefully start a 2025 big name fight. I would love to see that fight take place. All right, that's gonna be it for this video. I expect to make more UFC videos in the future. Not like, listen, I'm not gonna become a UFC YouTuber. I don't know that much, but if I think of a topic, I probably will make a video about it. I'll say maybe once a month. Once a month, I think that's fine. UFC video. So leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.